Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I want to talk a little bit about effective militia tactics. Okay, the problem with militias is that you have people coming into it, different levels of training, different types of arms, different physical conditions. Sometimes they may even speak different languages. So how you get a militia to be effective? Well, the key component is simplicity. Okay, you're gonna fall back on the KISS principle: keep it simple and stupid. Okay, so that's what it takes to make a militia effective. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back into the history books, and we're going to look at the Battle of Bunker Hill, also known as Reed's Hill. And what we have is we have the colonists. Okay, I'm going to say colonists here, that took a fortified position, okay, and then the British lined up in front of them, okay, and the British basically came forward, and the colonists were basically firing at them from this position. And from these fortified positions, the colonists were able to inflict a lot of damage on the British, okay, say put B here for British, okay, all right, they were able to inflict a lot of damage on the British. The British eventually did take that position. Okay, so the problem with this strategy is that if your enemy has ample resources, eventually they will take that position. The colonists did start running out of ammunition, and eventually the British beat them there. Now the British did suffer great losses in order to accomplish this. But the point is that we don't want, if you're in a militia, you want a strategy that's going to win. Okay, so hunkering down into a fortified position is only going to get you so far. Okay, if the other side has ample resources, eventually they will take that position. What I want to do now is let's look at some later examples of battles that happened in the American Revolution, particularly down in the South. And it took George Washington and his generals a while to figure out how to use the militia effectively, because George Washington, he had his regular Continental Army, and then basically he would take the militias that would come in from different areas, and then he would, like let's say he had let's say if George Washington had a line, okay, well in this line, let's say he would put militia here and maybe militia here. Okay, and what happens, and then this was, here was regular army, here was regular army, here was regular army, here was regular army. So what would happen is that when the British attacked, once the two lines met, right, and you got the British here, okay, all right, when the militia would basically run. Okay, so the militia would not hold their position. They were not disciplined enough. They were not well trained enough. So they would run, and then basically you would have breaks in the line wherever the militia were, and then that was a bad situation to be in. So later in the war, George Washington and his generals figured out how to use the militia effectively. I'm going to go up here now. So over here you got British. Okay. And what George Washington and his generals, I forget who the actual general was that was leading this, but what he did is he put the militia in the front. Okay, he didn't put them up there as sacrificial lamb. He put them up there for a strategic reason. So he put his two lines of militia up here, and then what he did is back here you had the Continental Army. Continental Army. So the British would attack the militia, right? The militia had orders to fire one shot and then retreat. Okay, so now this was part of the plan. Okay, so here's the point: that if you're going to have a retreat, right? If you have a unit that is not solid, that they might retreat, that has to be baked into your plan. So their orders were to fire one shot and retreat, and what would happen is the British would basically, they would see these guys run, and they figured that it was a rout. So now the British would break formation and start charging, all right, and then the British would run into the second militia line, all right, and now this line would fire one shot, all right, and then they would start running back, all right. So again, the British are like, okay, those guys, there's a complete rout. We're gonna win this. So now the British would start charging even harder, okay, and until they met the Continental Army back here. And when the British would meet this line, now they were completely out of formation. and then the Continental Army had a big advantage over the British that were out of formation. And what would happen is the militia would then form up, behind them or to the sides or wherever. And now the militia were actually effective. So this was an effective use of the militia. George Washington and his generals, realized what the militia would do, and they used that prediction to formulate a plan. Okay, so now let's talk about a modern-day context. In a modern-day context, let's look at a Red Dawn type of invasion. Okay, so now we have Russians invading. We got Russians and Cubans. Okay. All right, so we got Russians and Cubans invading. The regular army has been destroyed. Okay, so let's assume that there is no army to fall back behind. All you have is Russians and Cubans. So how could we effectively use this militia? Okay, well, if we know that the enemy is going to be moving in this direction, what we would do is we would set up an ambush. Okay. And it would specifically be an L-shaped ambush, okay, using modern firearms. Okay, and the idea of an L-shaped ambush, okay, is that you're firing in this direction, and then in that direction. Okay, so basically you don't have the two sides firing into each other, because if I were to put a line over here, then these two sides would be firing into each other. So you never want you never want a circle. Or even a semicircle, because the two ends are going to probably be firing each other. You want an L ambush. And you basically want to keep this short and have a fallback position. So you engage for a few minutes, all right? And then basically you have to know in advance where your fallback position is, okay? So from there, you engage here, then basically you break. These guys start pursuing, right? So now the Russians, these are the Russians now, they start pursuing this way, and now again they fall into this ambush here. You fight here for another minute, then you have another fallback position, let's say over here, okay? So now your Russians come over here, all right? And now you start engaging like that. So now you do the L on the other side, okay? So in my opinion, an effective use of a modern-day militia would be a series of L ambushes, right? L ambushes with a series of fallback positions. Okay, this way you're not hunkering down. Okay, and you don't have the advantage of having a regular army to fall back behind. This is the thing that I think would make the most sense. A series of L ambushes with continuous fallback positions, and because you're using this L ambush, you don't have to worry about your people shooting each other, because that is, in a modern day militia, that is the biggest threat, that your men are going to shoot each other. Okay, you don't want a wedge formation. For those of you not familiar with a wedge formation is something that kind of looks like that. The advantage of this is that you can, if you have, well, actually let's do it like this. A wedge formation is actually, let's say you have a man here, man here, man here, man here, man here, and the advantage is that they can shoot almost in any direction except into the man next to them, and that works great in all cases, where you have well-trained people. Except if you're using militiamen that have a very limited amount of training, there's a good chance that this guy is going to shoot that guy, and that this guy is going to shoot that guy. So you don't want to use a wedge formation. You don't want to use an echelon formation. An echelon basically looks like a slant like this. You want to use a series of these L ambushes, where basically these guys know that they're only shooting in one direction forward, and these guys are only shooting in one direction forward. Okay, and they know that there's nothing other than enemy in front of them in any direction, and then have a preset fallback position where everybody knows where that fallback position is, and that's going to mitigate the chances of friendly fire. Okay, so these are my thoughts on this. If you guys have any feedback, questions, anything you'd like to add, any other ideas, please put in the comment section. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, share it, hit that bell button. Talk to you guys next time.